Hello and welcome to my cave. We're going to do something a little different today. I have a smaller project. This is just a quick little one-day build. Maybe just take you a couple hours tops. I have here a couple of bookshelves. This is a very basic one. And this bookshelf maybe a little bit more, a little fancier. These are really basic bookshelves. I'm actually not talking today about the bookshelves themselves. I'm really just going to focus on the books. If you'd like to see how I constructed the bookshelves themselves, I can do that another time. But I'll just say that the wood and the painting and the texturing that I did is not unlike the door that I showed you on the stone house build. But again, today, I'm just going to focus on the books. I've seen lots of books on bookshelves in Scattered Terrain and other people's videos, and usually when I ask, they'll tell me that they are a miniature that they purchased and painted or printed. I don't have a 3D printer, can't afford one. I also don't have a whole lot of money to spend on just any kind of miniatures. I'm a teacher by profession, 6th grade specifically, and I love what I do. And I didn't get into it for the money, obviously. So I try to find my own ways to make things whenever I can. And that's what I did here. So with the books on this bookshelf, I just use the foam board like I do on most everything else. And I'm going to show you today how I made these books for the bookshelves in this project. I'm actually going to do a giveaway for this video. I haven't done this before, but if you comment below, I'll pick one person and I will send you a bookshelf and some books that you can either put on that shelf or whatever you'd like with them. I'll leave them detached and you can just glue them in or use them in whatever project you'd like, but I'll essentially be sending you a set of these books. All right, let's get over to the crafting table and I'll show you how I made these miniature books. All right, now that we're at the table, I can show you these a little more up close. This is a very basic bookshelf, nothing fancy, just the books on a shelf. We're doing something like this today. And then I have this example. Now, I made this first a while back, and I like it a lot, but I've improved on the books, I'd say, since then. But, you know, as you can see here, I just have some little bits and pieces that I've put like a little stone crystal ball, whatever. But I embellished this bookshelf a little bit more. Same principle though, but again, what we're looking at today really are the books. So I get into my scrap drawer and I just pull out some, whatever. Doesn't matter. I have a big drawer of scrap here. Just about anything will work. But, you don't need to cut into a big piece. In fact, I think I'll go with just this here. What I do here is these books and these books are actually one solid piece. It's just a long strip of the foam that I cut and paint to look like books. I know this isn't the greatest looking set of books, but as I said before, they are cheap and easy and look pretty good. All right, I want my piece to be about a 1/2 inch deep, I'd say, I think is what I went with. 3/8 deep. So this will be the depth of the book going back on the shelf. Using the Proxon here to cut this to length. All right, that's good. So that'll be the profile. That'll be the top, and now the face. And for the scale of these books, I'm going to make them just a half inch tall. All right, so this set of books will sit across the shelf like so. 3/8 in depth with a 1/2 inch height. Now I just need to cut them to length. We're going to make them two different lengths. So the shelves that I'm using are 2 inches wide. I will make one of the set of books, we'll go 1 3/4, just to leave a little bit of a gap at the end. Actually, you know what? I'll go 1 3/4 is good. Roughly. You'll notice here my sets of books are different length. They just add some variety. So that will be one set of books, 1 3/4, And then I'll make the other one, we'll just go 1.25 inches. And that will leave some space on the shelf for other things. As I showed you here, I have some other little embellishments on the shelves. You can add all kinds of things, little potion bottles or, you know, whatever. All right, so there are the two pieces. These will end up being our 2 sets of books. I'll keep that around just in case. All right. So, as you can see, not too dissimilar from the sets I used for that shelf. Now, on this foam, I've left so one side of the foam, both sides of the board. I mean, this is thicker, of course, but on the outside of the board, you have that coating that's a little more rigid, a little more solid. I made sure I have that on, and I'm going to leave it on the back because it will keep the back of this strong, and you'll see why I want to do that. And so, next I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to start to cut into this and just make the books. So between each of these books, I have created a groove, a gap between them to make them look like separate books. But again, this is really one piece of foam from book to book. And this is how I've created that. So I get the width of the book that I want roughly. I'm going to slice in, not too deep, maybe 1/3 of the way in. Come in very, very close to that cut, but slightly over to the side, and make another cut toward that first one. And I'm going to have this space between the books here, like so. And I just go across. Some books will be thicker than others. Some books will be thinner, of course, but you want to get really, really close with that second cut so that I'm just, as you can see, I'm just creating these gaps. And it isn't an exact science, it isn't perfect, just, you know, making some spaces between them. This is a good enough kind of project. Very close. First cut, just put that where the width of the last book you want it to be. And the second cut, get just about as close as you can. Just taking out a tiny little sliver just to put some little bit of space between those. Pretty good. Okay, so far so good. Let's do the second one. Now as you can see here, and this is what I said before, I left that coating on the back because this does make it, with these cuts, this becomes very weak. I could bend that and it would break very easily, and so that just keeps that strong until we're done putting these together. All right, here I'll show you a close-up what I'm talking about with these cuts. So again, I want to start off with the width of the book that I want. I'll go about that. We're going to call that an 1/8 of an inch, maybe wide book. I make a little cut, I slice in, again about 1/3 of the way down. If you can see that cut there, how far I've gone down. Then I'm going to put the knife just about as close to that cut as I can get without, and still take off the tiniest little sliver, cutting in towards that original cut. And that is going to create this little gap between the books. I'm just using the knife to push that piece out. You see? And this is what I've done. I've created this space, just the smallest of spaces between what will be the first book and the second book. I'll make the next book a little wider. Again, cutting in about 1/3 of the way down-ish. And then a second cut very, very close to that first one. Cutting in towards so that I just chop out a little sliver like so. There I have 2 books. What will be books later. You see, this is one of the finished ones I've done. So There you can see the gap between them. Those are the two books. This isn't actually the very best one. This isn't a great example. I kind of messed them up. But again, if you look at my bookshelf here, you can see what I've done. These books were kind of small. It's my original build. But so I just keep going like that across. I vary the widths so that I have different widths of books, different thicknesses. And sometimes maybe I'll make a couple in a row that look pretty much exactly the same, or maybe even 3 in a row. That could be multiple volumes of a set of books. So maybe I'll make these two kind of the same size, roughly. It was actually very satisfying, for whatever reason, pushing these little slivers out of there with the knife like this. There, so that's up close what I'm doing with my cuts. That one got a little deep, so now see where this one got kind of deep right here? You're going to want to be careful. These become very fragile. I did leave that, like I said, the back is that coating on the insulation board, but try not to go so deep because these will snap very easily while you're working with them. Now, once you get all your base coat and your paint on, they become much more rigid and solid, especially clear coat afterwards. But so there we have our 2 sets of books. Next, I'm going to take my fine grit sandpaper, very fine grit, and just soften. I don't have to really dig on these too hard. I'm just softening all of the edges so they don't look too crisp and clean. Just breaking those sharp edges. I'm going to take the paper and fold a little bit and just don't push too hard, but get in between the books just a little bit. Just going to slightly round those bookends, or those spines of the books. Oh! All right, sanded, nice, and just softened them up a little bit. All right. All right, we'll do some painting now. So I'm just going to lay down a little, I use this parchment paper. Lay down a little parchment paper, get my BMC sauce, my Black Magic Craft base coat. Again, if I haven't said it before, I'll say it again. Jeremy at Black Magic Craft is a genius, and I get a lot of inspiration from him. Doesn't need a whole lot, but I do want it to get thoroughly covered. Get right down in those cracks down there. In between, I want that all dark down there. if you get a little on you. You know, and I even, this back will never be seen, but I do the backs of things anyway, just because it just makes it more rigid, stronger, gives it a little bit more weight, more consistency. All right, that's pretty good. I'm a very messy crafter. You can see I've got it all over my fingers, but that's all right. Washes off just fine. This is just black paint and Mod Podge. Nothing to worry about. Suppose you could wear gloves if you are, you know, a little more particular about keeping your hands clean. Or I'm sure there are other ways to mount this somehow, you know, like with minifigures. You suppose you could mount it and paint it. I will just dip my fingers in my brush cleaner water and wipe them off. See? No problem. And clean my brush. I just keep a jar of water here on my workbench, on my crafting bench, and we're good. I also just use my junky older brushes most of the time for base coating anyway, so you know, this is a junky older brush. I've got a fresh set of brushes over there ready to go whenever I'm ready to do something detailed. Okay, next little piece I'm going to do, I will take my, I've said before I have this nice old ice pick that I use for things. I also found these come in a pair, these came in a pair at the dollar store. There's some sort of clay tool, I think, with this sharp point on them. These are, I just like my ice pick that I use. But anything, I suppose you could use a pencil, a sharp pencil or a pen. And I'm going to go in to the tops and bottoms of the books. And I really only need to do the tops of the books for this, but I may later on forget which is which and do it, mess up, you know, so I just do the top and the bottom just to play it safe. Anyhow. So this is the fronts of the books. Leave this, I'm going to just put in some, just go in and draw some grooves. Doesn't need to be a whole lot, but just from the front to the back, along the top and bottom of each book, pulling those lines through there. And these will just represent pages or, you know, gaps in the book that are either between pages. You could use the wire brush thing like for wood for this, but I just want a few deeper lines. I don't want lots of thin lines like wood. I just want just a few deeper lines on each of these. You can even see, probably can't even see what I'm doing right now. I can barely see what I'm doing right now, but when I put the paint on here, you're going to see what I did. You may be able to see in under the top inside the shelf the tops of the books where there's just the white pages and the little lines in there. Maybe not. All right, so I'll do that now. I go in with, now I use the Craft Smart Vanilla. It's a great color. It's not quite white, you know, it's that creamier white. This is a great color. I've used this all along, but I also have this Citadel Base Wraithbone. Love this color. This is a great color for, and it will, I think, also be good for not only bone, but aged paper. And you know what? I didn't shake that up. You don't need much of it, just a little tiny bit. used way too much. Tiniest little dab will do you. I don't know if you can see on camera those lines, but I can, and that's all that matters. I like to get in close and look at things, and I want those details to hold up when I do so. I am just barely tapping just a tiny few hairs of that brush onto the little tongue of the lid there. And you see that is plenty of paint. I don't want a lot. I don't want that white getting down between the books. It wouldn't be too big of a problem because when I do the wash later on, it'll be all right. But rather than having to cover up a bunch of white with multiple coats later on, I'll just be a little careful now. All right, so we have our paper. Again, the Citadel base Wraithbone, great color for bone, also great color for paper. All right, now for the colors. So as you can see, I have multiple colors in my books. And instead of having every book a different color, I just picked a few different colors, different shades of browns and reds and greens, and made most of the books that, with the occasional I threw a yellow in there and a blue in there. Just those are like special books. Those might be a special spell book. All right, so we'll just start off with some browns. I'm going to go with just a couple different shades of brown. I'm going to start off with a very dark brown. I have here the folk art. I have here the folk art burnt umber. Don't need much of this. Goes a long way. And I want a brush with a finer tip on it. Not super fine, but just I want to be able to get to just each individual book without hitting the one next to it. Now sometimes I do put the same color book. So you see here I have these two red are the same, those two green. I do want, that would be represent maybe like volumes 1 and 2 of a book series. So I do want to make some of them, that's just what I want. I want to make some of them the same color in a row. They might be, as I said, 2 volumes of a set of books, or even 3 volumes. And on the end books, make sure you paint the ends. All right, so we got the first book there, and maybe I'll make this one the same color down here. So I have 2 books on that set that are that brown, and I'll go with this little narrow one here on the other set. And maybe this guy here. This one second to the end also. All right. Now I'll take that same brown and I'm going to lighten it with a little bit of Deco Art burnt sienna. Just lighten that brown up some. Don't need much to do it. Oh, I just did it. Mix it up. Okay, that's a good brown. All right, let's pick a couple more books on here. I'm going to go with this first book here on this set. Now what I'm showing you here today is just going to be a kind of basic So really, you know, take this and run with it. Make it your own. Do some different stuff. You never have to do exactly what I'm doing, obviously. This is just, I'm changing my approach always, so I might not do this the same way next time. And we'll go with this one here. I'm ever so carefully letting the paintbrush just kind of slide, a few hairs slide around the edge of the book, so I kind of get a little bit between there. Yep, that's good. And the other set. Make this an end book, that color. All right, we've got a couple browns. Let's see, we'll go with green, okay? How about Deco Art Woodland Green? Love this color. Use it for lots of stuff. Just a little bit of that. Now it's a little bright. I don't want it quite that bright, so I'm actually going to take some of that brown that I just used and mix it into there. So I'll take a little bit of that, a little bit of that brown, mix into that green. You see, I'm going to get this, it's going to pull down that brightness a little bit, make it a little warmer. And that's the green we have. I like that green a lot. All right. Oh yeah, that's nice. And do this book down here to green too. I don't know if you can hear the noises in the background, but my wife is a crafter too. She likes to work with textiles, and she does work with her Cricut, which is really cool. So my t-shirt today, actually, she made for me. She makes me t-shirts. Makes me happy. All right, and we'll paint this guy here. That green.
I made the one you're wearing.
Yes, I said that. All right, and lovely. Okay, let's get into, let's do a little bit of a, oh, let's see. I got just Craft Smart red. Very little bit of that. Again, that's a pretty bright red, so I'm going to cut a little brown in there with it. That same brown that I used. You know, you're kind of going for that dyed leather. So this is a dyed leather green. This is a dyed leather red. You don't really have vibrant, bright colors. It's a red, but it's definitely a dull red. I want a little bit more of that brown in there, actually. It's still a little bright. So they've dyed the leather, and those processes weren't as good as they are today. This almost becomes another brown, but it's a very red brown. You can see what I'm doing there. I like it, that's good. All right. And I'll do this guy right here. This book in that red. Mm-hmm. All right, now I have one book left on these sets to do. As I said, I like to throw one in there that's kind of special, that might stand out. You know, you see here I have this one blue book and that one yellow book in there. Same here, I have a couple of this brighter blue and a yellow. You could do blacks, of course. Today I think I'm going to go with this purple, just Craft Smart purple. Also very bright. And I will mix in again a little bit of that brown. Not much though. I want this to stay pretty bright. But not super bright. Just the smallest amount of brown. Really, with the colors of these books, you could do anything you want, as wild or as basic as you'd like. I could have made all the books the same color brown. I'm doing a lot of extra work here, some might say, but I like it. So last book here in this is bright. It's not so bright, I guess I should say. It's purple. So I think about, you know, if you're going to enter this room and there's this bookshelf, you might have that one book that really stands out, and there's for some reason for that. Maybe it's a book of spells, or it's the lever to a secret door behind the bookshelf. Whatever. Wouldn't be so secret if it was bright purple, but for some reason that one book has some significance. It really stands out. So there are my two basic bookshelves, painted, or books rather. There's my two sets of books so far. Not bad, not bad. Okay, next you'll notice on the books that on the bindings here you just have these little, I just have some little stripes of gold, kind of represent, the embossed on old bindings. From a distance, if you look really close, you can see those are just little metallic gold brush strokes. From a distance, they don't look. They look, less. They look better. So again, as I said before, this is kind of like Impressionism. So I need a very fine brush. All right. So we're going to get into some I like the deep bronze for this. Is a good one. You have to shake these metallics up really well. So we have a deep bronze, very small amount of this. I have the deep bronze. I have the fine tipped brush. I'm going to load the brush up really well and then pull a lot of that paint out on the edge so that I have a very sharp little tip with a small amount of paint on it. And just go in and select some books and put some stripes in there. So I got go high and low on this one, and then maybe one right in the middle. You see what I've done there? Okay, same as with the colors, because I'm going to use other metallics as well. So same with the colors. I'm just going to pick some books and lay these in. So I went high and low, put two little lines right in the middle of the book, in the middle of the spine as well. Mix up your patterns, have some variation where you put the embossing. This one I'll put two big thick lines right there, about cutting the book into like thirds. This is where your mini painting techniques might come in handy, and I don't have very good mini painting techniques, so that's okay. All right. For my next color, I'll go with a brighter bronze. This is just standard bronze. This is both of these are just Craft Smart Deep Bronze and Craft Smart just bronze. Small little drip of that will do. Smallest you can get, really. Okay. This is a great bright metallic color. I'll put some, make my purple book the special book. And I'm gonna try my hand at a little, maybe a little star shape here. Something special. Okay, I want this book to sort of be something special. Yeah, a little something there. Just a little sparkle. And then lastly, I'll go with some tin. Craft Smart tin. I like to use the variation in the metallics, like everything else, a little variety, so they don't all look like the same book. So you see, I have both sets of books painted. I have the embossing, the little work on the ends of the bindings. I'll dry these really quick. Now, the magic, the end piece, the washes. And the washes are great. They really hide a lot of mistakes. They make things really pop. For this, Citadel makes some great washes. This is the Citadel shade Seraphim Sepia. I also have the Citadel shade, the Agrax Earth shade. Both of these are must-haves. They are liquid gold. Not the cheapest thing ever, but very little goes a very long way. Now, I would not use these washes on big projects, but on little things, these are great. These are really great for minis. You can take a really mediocre mini and really make it look great with some washes. Anyway, so we have these books now. They look pretty good. I'm not going to use the Earth shade for that. I'm going to use the Seraphim Sepia. And we will get in here a little bit of this. Be very sparing. You don't need lots of it. Usually whatever's sitting right here will be plenty for the job. Even that might be too much, so I'll just wring it out. Very little bit on the brush. I'm going to start off on the pages side so I see where I'm at. Looks pretty good. I don't want a lot of this. Yep, good. And this is what's going to make things look aged and careworn. Now, it's not a huge detail. It's a very small, very mild effect, but it's enough to really make the difference between something that looks a little too crisp and clean and something that looks well aged and weathered and worn. And there you have it, a couple of set of books. Now, I'm aware these are not the greatest, most amazing looking thing on the market, but they are very simple. I made them myself out of materials that I have inexpensively, and they look pretty good when you put them on a shelf like this. As I said, you can construct your bookshelves and layer them in there like so, and it looks pretty good on the table. Thank you so much for coming back and joining me. If you have any questions, let me know. As I said, I will select someone from the comments below to send a bookshelf and a set of books to. So hit me up in the comments, and we'll see you next time. I don't know if anybody else likes to snack while they craft, but today I have red vines and root beer. Red vines and root beer. I said red vines and root beer. What do you think?
That's awesome.
Red vines and root beer. Woo!